Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Macabre Fair Film Festival's Men of Terror. We have some great guests today. I don't know if was anybody in the room here for the Women of Horror earlier today, or we have a fresh audience? You were here for that? Awesome. We're going to spend about 45 minutes or so talking with these gentlemen who've kindly stepped away from their tables so that you can learn a little bit more about them. We'll start right from my left here. We've got Robert Mukes. Woo! Yeah. Jim Krut. Howdy. We have Edward X. Young.
Hello.
Warrington Gillette. And Jonathan Tiersten.
Hi.
Once we get these mics sorted.
Costume? Wait, it wasn't. I'm sorry, we stepped on your introduction because this mic wasn't working.
It's all right. It's all good.
Warrington
and Jonathan Tiersten. Warrington Gillette and Jonathan Tiersten. You know what? We'll keep this. I don't have any females here to say ladies first, so we'll start from the left and work our way down. And when we get down to Jonathan, he finishes up. I'm going to open up for questions from the audience if you'd like. Come on up. I'll give you the mic. Introduce yourself and ask a question or two if you'd like. So we'll start off with Mr. Mukes. House of a Thousand Corpses, obviously. That's why you're making your rounds on the convention trail.
Right. I got lucky to be in that film. It was pretty cool to work on.
Right. But before that, I know you did some basketball and things like this. What was the impetus and how did you find your way into acting in the first place?
Let's see, after college, I played basketball for 5 years in Europe. And to get my basketball contracts, I played in summer leagues in Los Angeles. So hanging out in Los Angeles playing basketball, you interact with all different types of people that were raised there, etc. USC students, guys that played for UCLA and everything like that. And some of the guys that played for the local colleges, a couple of them, the guys were telling me about commercials and stuff, and I never even really thought about television or like basketball players that were on television were like NBA stars. And I remember telling a friend of mine, he's like, you should do commercials. I'm like, that's for Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. That's how old I am. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I'm a European basketball player. They're like, no, as an actor. And I kind of like just blew it off, like whatever. And towards the end of my basketball career, I saw a guy that I played against in summer pro leagues, and he had a big Burger King commercial where he's like just chomping down on a Burger King sandwich, and he wasn't that attractive, and I could outplay him too. So I thought, So I told my girlfriend, I'm like, look, this guy from the summer league, he's all busted up and stuff, and you look better than his girlfriend, so I think I'm more attractive, and maybe I should do that. She's like, exactly, and so that was kind of like the beginning of it right there, just kind of discovering it by an accident, being in Los Angeles.
Very nice. And then from the commercials into film.
Yes.
The difference with that type of acting, commercial acting to film acting, can you give us some idea, of what that type of experience is like?
For me, it's almost the same. I think like spokespersons for television, usually they're like a little bit more broad with their acting. But for me, it's almost the same because typically I'm just the same character. So the commercials that I've gotten, it's just like for a big, mean, bad dude. And it's kind of like a joke into something where there's a smaller guy that I'm like intimidating, and then they bring the product up within the commercial. So for me, the acting is almost the same because sometimes I try to, I'm a little bit more tougher, and then sometimes I'm sad, whatever happens, whatever. But for commercials, for me, it's almost the same, just kind of just being an intimidating factor on the commercial.
So let me ask you that, because it sounds like some typecasting kind of going on based on your size and stuff, but your personality is very magnanimous. You're a fun guy to hang around, big smile and stuff. You're obviously playing to the strength with what the casting directors are looking for, but as you're beginning to grow more as an actor, if an opportunity was there to challenge yourself and break out of that, how do you feel about chasing another genre?
Absolutely. Whatever role I get, I audition for everything. But typically, there's so many actors auditioning. Like, I don't know, guys. how many people go to an audition that we audition for? There's got to be, for me, being a mean, bad dude, there's got to be like 250 guys. And then for like smaller guys, there's like thousands. So typically, the writers and the producers or whatever, when they go to the table to pick their cast, they pretty much have a solid idea of what they want. And I don't really get invited to the parties to play the soft guy or the lawyer or the doctor or whatever like that.
Well,
But it's just fine being
comedy.
typecast. Say it again.
I could see you doing comedy.
I have done comedy,
Yeah.
but it's always, an average sized guy, and then you're a little bit tough on your wife, and then your wife's brother comes to town, and you're like, well, hey, babe, I love you. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. Are you sure about that, Adam? You sure you're sorry about the misunderstanding there? All right, cool. See you later. So I have done comedy.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Jim.
Yo.
You are famous as being the helicopter zombie in an iconic film, Dawn of the Dead. A lot of prosthetics, working with Tom Savini, and who I know you had some experience with prior to even the film. Would you go into what that is like, being an actor in all of the mask and the makeup and the latex and et cetera, and what is involved in, I guess there is some willpower that it takes to fight your way through a day of wearing that and so on and so forth. So can you kind of give them some idea of what that experience is like?
Yeah, just in terms of a little background, Tom Savini and I met in college, and we worked in theater there too. I was working in theater in Pittsburgh when Dawn of the Dead was being made, and Tom is the one who contacted me and asked if I wanted to do the role.
Right.
But even in college, Tom was a very inventive person, and we did a two-person play called Zoo Story by Edward Albee, and in which Tom switched out a knife just prior to one of our performances, and I ended up stabbing him as he ran into me, and just before we went on. So we kind of got him patched up, and he's, I'm leaking here a little bit. But during the performance, we had to reenact that same piece, and I just stabbed him literally out in the hallway. And so when we did that, and he goes, ah! People said, oh my God, that looks so real, because it really was his blood.
Yeah, nice.
So sometimes special effects are a little dangerous, but in terms of makeup, I learned I really didn't like a lot of makeup. We did some crazy stuff like Theater of the Absurd, Ionesco's Rhinoceros. For that show, we had to do a lot of quick changes, go off, back on stage, off, and kept putting on these ears, which kept getting larger and larger, and stranger features were added. Well, the technology to do that quickly, of course, was you use a little whatever's going to stick quick and fast, and then we just kind of rip that off, and then we stick something else right onto that spot, and then we, rip something else off. So I realized the body can only take so much of that chemically induced pain,
Right.
and the physical part of it. As far as Dawn of the Dead, the head casting and everything took about a 2-week period. It's completely cover your head in plaster, and you breathe through a straw for like half an hour until the plaster hardens. That was basically the technology at the time. Today, if you're trying to do that with a large name actor, they're not going to sit around for half an hour. They need to be in and out of that chair a lot faster so that they can be on the set. So a lot of prosthetics, a lot of chemistry has evolved so that you can do some of those things, special effects and special makeup features easier and quicker. And those prosthetics go on, they come off, and the other thing is they're kinder to the skin and to the body. Yeah, but you'll still hear about some characters take 8, 9, 10 hours just in makeup.
Right.
I really have better things to do, but it looks good. It looks good, but yeah.
It puts you in the golden time. I mean, after 16 hours, it's like you get paid for working a week.
Yeah.
So I love prosthetics. Like, take your time, guys. Take your time.
You're sitting there.
In our union, the overtime rate, as you get more overtime, it's pretty outstanding. Yeah. So I like those 8-hour days of makeup. You have to be there at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning before everyone else gets there at 7 or whatever. So those are good. I like those days.
With working with Tom and in that particular piece, how long were you in that? When it was all said and done and you were actually out filming, how long were you wearing that?
On set for 2 days, so basically wearing it for 2 days. And we did some pre-fits because the first plaster casting cracked. Had to go back and redo that, and had to build up the head, the rest of the prosthetics. But basically, in the makeup, in the prosthetics for 2 days.
Nice.
You could still eat. I wanted to do that. Make that a priority. Zombies always eat, man.
They never stop. Edward X. Young. Ed, you are tearing it up as an indie guy who is, honestly, you are fabulous, it seems, from whatever role you take, but you're really adept at these psychotic, just vicious, mean type of characters. You won a Macabre Faire Film Festival Award as a Best Actor in one of those type of roles. Where do you find your passion to find these unique characters within yourself and bring them out? Because you're really such a nice, loving type of guy.
You have to ask me a tough question. I have to search my soul on that one. I had a very unhappy childhood, Adam. I don't know. I've always been fascinated by horror. In the past 10 years, I've done about 63 horror pictures, and very proud of The Green Monster and the new one that you're in with me, Bigfoot Blood Trap.
Right.
But I'm trying to think, where do I get my characters? It's a strange destiny. When I was a kid, I just loved the horror movies. I wanted to be Vincent Price. I moved around the country a lot, and I used to go to the theater and see these guys who I admired. And what's strange is that I studied acting in my youth, and was driven by my family into the business world, a bad first marriage. I always wanted. It's a tough question. I always wanted to be a horror movie actor. And when I was studying acting in college, my professor really thought that was a D-Class A notion, that you should have higher aspirations. Broadway, sitcoms, TV commercials, like not horror movies. But anyhow, when I finally pursued acting in my mid-40s after my divorce, I started auditioning, and if I auditioned for a horror picture, they would simply say, they would often say, not always, I would say, like, if you agree to take this role, we'll stop auditioning with your actors. We really like you. If it was anything else, it was one of those don't call us, we'll call you deals. I was drawn into it, but why the crazy, I don't know, I like playing these crazy, wild characters. I don't know. I was picked on a lot as a kid. I don't know. I'll convince people they can't pick on me anymore.
Well, you know what? Maybe we have some actors in the room, I believe we do, to play something that is so opposite of yourself. We all wear masks in life during regular, day-to-day, just going to a job. You got to put on a mask at times. Can you offer any advice of what it takes to kind of go there and stay there? To another, if there's another actor in the room, what it takes to go, because you go pretty far. I mean, some of the roles you've done are off the wall.
I like pushing the envelope. Not a lot of actors like doing that, though. I've got professional friends that are in the guild. They're doing very well. They don't like to do that crazy. I like seeing how far I can go. I've always enjoyed shaking. I enjoy shaking people up, shocking them, knocking them for a loop. But once again, in my heart, you're talking about these roles can be scary. In my heart, I really view what I do as comedy. People often ask me, is it scary being on the sets? And I'm like, no, we laugh a lot. I really view it that I do a strange form of comedy. The punchline just usually involves somebody getting their head cut off or their guts ripped out.
That's what makes it scary. Right.
It's interesting you say that, because I have found on horror sets, as opposed to other genres, when I do jump, horror sets have a unique family feel to them. There's always stress and pressure, and as time clicks on the clock there, people go out of their minds. But there is a lot of joking, and there is a lot of comedy, and there is a lot of unique moments when you see yourself in a mirror looking nuts or whatever it is, that lends and blends itself into laughter and such. Warrington.
Yes.
Jason Voorhees. I have to know what it must feel like to find yourself, after this is all said and done, being an iconic character, not just film anymore. Now it's the character itself. How does that change your life?
Well, I didn't really know what it was at the time I was doing it, because when I came along, Jason had not existed before. So we didn't really know. The script kind of said Jason on it, and you're reading through it, and you're going, where are my lines? Where are my lines? This is so exciting. I just got out of Lee Strasberg. Oh, I got a break. Here I come. I'm coming.
Right.
And I wanted to play another role in the film. They said no. I was trying to get the John Fury part, the counselor, the guy, the girl. It didn't happen. So then they look at me, you want to be Jason? Oh, sure. I'm happy to do anything you ask me to. Okay, you want to shave my head? Yeah, when do we start? Start cutting.
Right.
Now. So you jump into this thing, you still don't really know what you're doing. I've been to stunt school in Hollywood and was getting off on that a little bit and jumping into things. And anyway, the part unfolded. So to answer your question, then it had happened and it was over. And the real meaning and the value of it didn't really come to your awareness till maybe 10 years goes by.
Right.
And life opens up strange doors and you go different paths according to what comes your way. Life is unfolding and there are different chapters. So I'm in another chapter on Wall Street. I'm going, God damn, Friday 13th is still going?
Yeah.
Well, geez, who's Jason now? Now at this point we're up to Kane Hodder, who is like Mr. Jason. So it's like, God, I haven't even discussed it for all this period of time. So to go back to your question, now it's starting to have meaning to you. And then, if you're fortunate enough to participate in a convention, and then you start to talk to the fans and people that really create the substance and the dynamic of the business, because they're the one that drive the business. Mm-hmm. Then you start communicating with them, and wow, what did you think? What's important to you? Or what do you remember? Jesus, they're coming up with stuff that you never even heard before. Like a guy comes to you with like water in a bottle from Crystal Lake. I'm like, oh. like, what is this? Somebody else comes up with a shingle off Jason's house.
You sign it?
And you sign it. You're like, and then you get feedback from them. And then you learn like, wow. And their interpretation of all this going on. So, I feel lucky that I am part of it.
Right.
And I'm shocked at the success of anything that lasts 25, 30 years. I'm shocked that people are still talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that somebody wants something from me on something I did 20 years ago. Like, I'm flattered. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You want my machete? Yeah, I'm flattered. I'm flattered. And then we hope, I hope in my lifetime that, I can go through the creative process and then I can make something. My contribution. I didn't write this. I don't even know who the hell wrote it, but they created an iconic character. So now we got to reinvent ourselves and we create something that's unique to us.
Yeah. You know what? You mentioned the acting training prior to that you came out of
Right.
Strasberg, you said.
Right.
And then you ended up in that role. How do you feel that helped you with a role like that?
Oh, yeah. Look, I don't know, because all I know is that if you go to a Stanislavski and you're method acting and they got you laying on the floor screaming, hours and hours, and there's Lee Strasberg and this and that, oh, I'm method actor. Okay, good. You're going through and you actually think you are this nut job. All I can tell you that method acting, whatever your technique is, whatever your advantages are, whatever your training, I don't know, whatever works for you. But for me personally, let me tell you something. You put me in the woods, I'm all by myself, I've got all this shit on my face, my eye hurts, my teeth hurts, I got snot coming out my nose. Yeah, I'm ready to kill somebody. Come on. And if I was Robert size, it'd have been hell to pay. That's all I got to say. So we were caught up in it. I was hurting. So it wasn't like I had to come, a little sense memory here. What happened to me in my life where I'm hurt? Oh, now I'm hurting. No. It was happening. It was happening.
It looks so real.
I could have killed Amy Steele anytime. I get around her neck, she's out. I mean, but I do have great respect for some actors that, I don't know, put De Niro there and somehow these guys, man, they go in that space. They are living it. I mean, you're going to go into a dark side of your mind. We all have a dark side. What does it take to get us there?
Right.
What's going to put us in? What would make you a killer? What would it take? We could go there, but yeah, what would it take?
Right. Absolutely. Jonathan, unique unique perspective for you, with obviously kicking things off as a child actor. That I always find unique, and you started off there obviously with Sleepaway Camp, which now I guess it's getting resurgence. It's re-released in the high def and so on and so forth. I know we talked a little bit about leaving the business and so on and so forth. Would you kind of open up a little bit about what that experience was like? You know, you kind of came on strong, you were very talented, and then you decided to move off and start playing music for a while.
Yeah, I've had to answer this question so many times, and I don't think I ever give the same answer twice, because I'm not quite sure. I was 25 years old. I was getting, I remember I had an audition in the Dakota where John Lennon and Yoko Ono lived, and they had couches in the elevators, which I found very strange, for the movie Teachers. And they said to me, and I think this was really the one that sort of just was the straw that broke the camel's back, when they said to me, if Ralph doesn't take it, it's yours. And I had gotten to a point in my life where I think that fame mattered too much. And I found, I just felt so empty and lost and angry. And at that point I had started playing music regularly in New York, and it was always a passion of mine. I grew up playing classical French horn. And at that point I've always been a singer. I wasn't a very good guitar player, to be truthful. But I played a gig out in Colorado, because I had a friend who had lived out there. And 2 months later, I packed up everything, threw it in the back of a Mazda, and drove out there. And had my manager calling me, screaming, which I always found very funny, because if you remember Friends, they had Joey's manager. That was actually based on my manager. That's a true story. Barbara Jarrett, who managed Elizabeth Shue as well. And I mean, she was this horrific woman. And she was just, with the Pall Mall hanging out of her mouth. And I just, maybe in my 30s, I regretted it at times, because I was like right there on the cusp. But I realized that the journey is awesome, and I'm happy I took it. And then for me, I found this other thing that that I had, if not equal, maybe even greater passion for, and it's something now that I have ownership of, and I don't. No one can take it from me.
Right.
I don't have to wait for somebody to give me a job to go sit in my hotel room and play guitar for 3 hours.
And now you're back into acting, and really kind of in a big way. It's become, at least it appears that it's become your main passion now, and
it pays better.
Focus. But kind of sitting out of it for a while, and now coming back. And I'm going to talk about Perfect House, obviously, because it was a Macabre Faire Film Festival film, and that was a tremendous role, and there was a tremendous job for somebody who hadn't really, kept things warm in terms of being in front of a camera and such. And one of the things that I noted in that film and those that I'm seeing you after is just this really natural, comfortable, and I mean, you're playing a twisted character in that one. Again, not somebody who's twisted in any way, very, another loving sort of personality in real life, and then able to flick a switch. You talked about your experience and the trip. Do you feel that some of the things along the way in terms of the emotional ride of getting through life are helping you now with bringing out these great performances?
Well, they certainly can't hurt. I went through sort of those Blues Brothers experiences of, showing up at a bar in Wyoming where, what kind of music do you play? Country and Western. And I'm just, trying to think of every goddamn John Denver song I know, and so I don't get killed. That's a memory I didn't think I'd bring up, but and being broke is a joke. Owning a bar for 2 years, and then the day after I sell my bar, my car has a boot on it, And I try to get a job 2 weeks later at a liquor store for $6.50 an hour, and I can't. And then, you know, shortly thereafter, I get flown out to Austin, Texas to be at the Freddy vs. Jason premiere, you know. But do they pay me for it? No, of course not. So, and then I did return to sleepaway camp, which I hated the whole experience. I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then Felissa recommended me for The Perfect House in 2010, and that sort of changed everything. But I was ready, frankly. And what I did is I went back to, and it's funny because I had done an after-school special with Uta Hagen, and I went back and looked up some Uta Hagen exercises and started doing it at home. And when the first day of shooting, I was shit terrified. Fucking like, oh my God. I remember being in the room, there's like 35 people in this basement, and I'm just going, what the fuck am I doing here? How could I possibly think I could do this? And I got through it. Felissa gets a phone call, you know, the next day. They're asking if I'm on drugs.
Wow.
But what I was doing is speaking of De Niro, for me, it was a mosquito. And that was the body thing I was doing, because he has to move constantly in that piece. He's constantly moving, because if you haven't seen The Perfect House, John Dozy keeps people captured in cages in his basement.
Right.
He keeps one girl for 5 years because she's his muse. And he needs an audience for his kills. And he's very organized. And so he's constantly bouncing from cage to cage and all over the place, but none of that was scripted. But by day 2, I felt like the cobwebs were gone.
So we leave the business and we talk about change. Now coming back into the business, how has the business changed in your view?
Dramatically. Even just very recently, I've learned a lot. You know, the agent and the manager have become far less consequential. You know, it was all by rote when I did it. You got a manager, the manager worked through an agent. You either got the role or you didn't get the role. And you pounded the pavement every day. That was it. Now there are all these different avenues because of the internet. And there are indie films and web films and industrials and all these different things. So if you want to, you know, if you're willing to work hard and this is your passion, you can make a living. You may not get rich. You make a living. But it also, you know, with all the terrible things that have happened in the music industry, which I have been very verbal about, and that is great frustration. But in acting, there's been many more avenues opened up for independent filmmakers, and you see films like The Perfect House or my newest film, Redemption, and you see these films that are better than these huge Hollywood releases, and they're shot just as well. I mean, it's staggering. For, you know, a tiny fraction of the money. It's not even close.
Right.
And I think that's awesome. That's a real boondoggle.
Guys, I'd like to open up the floor now to some questions. If anybody has any questions at all, please feel free. This is your opportunity. Anyone? Come on up, Jay.
I'm okay.
You sure?
Yeah. And this goes out to all 5. Admirable for all the walks of life you've come through to get here today. John, the one thing you talked about is the quality of independent film now being just as great as the big budget. And I couldn't agree more with it. And I think that's something, you look at different generations up here, and you see how independent film has really affected everyone here. Starting out with Friday the 13th as just being a concept, not even being Jason. You talk about Sleepaway Camp with the twist and the ways, and now you transitioning all these years. Edward, we know all about you, my friend, and what you've done and everything. And Jim, I mean, Zombies, The Undead, way back in Robert with House of a Thousand Corpses, which was one of Zombie's first, you know, brainchild. How has independent film, in your opinion, really helped you promote your careers and grow your careers in the modern day where the big budget has such a select few that are in it, and you have to be able to roll through all the ways and build something outside, starting with Robert?
House of a Thousand Corpses was an indie, And I've had a couple of days on some bigger projects, but so I can't really compare the two because I haven't done enough big projects to say what indie has gotten me there. Because I haven't, and although I'm trying very hard, and I'm fortunate enough to have a good agent, and I audition for bigger budget roles and Marvel and all that, but so I can't really compare. I think for sure, when we work and it's something that's good, no matter the budget, if it can be analyzed and dissected by those guys, if they have the time to do that, watch our reel or whatever, then it has to be good for us, for our career, to just work and practice and get the webs out, except keep them out, keep it polished, etc.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my thought on that.
Let me just say that I think one of the biggest changes is the technology. 25, 30 years ago, the kind of equipment that is available now, the high def or the red camera, whatever, wasn't available to the average person. So now you have more people who have a lot of variety of ideas, and they have accessibility to the equipment, and they can get a few friends together or whatever, and they can make an independent film. And that film quality is going to look good because some of the work is done for them, but the editing programs are better. You can do a lot of things at home. I think the technology drives that aspect, but the other side is the availability and accessibility of casting for actors, for crew, for anybody else. And the other aspect of that too is then the cooperative sense, where independent filmmakers say, look, I don't have but 2 cameras and I need 2 more, and can anybody in my circle help out? And so, or do you have a dolly? Do you have a boom mic? Do you have the other equipment I need to complete my film? Because when you're shooting yours, we'll help each other out. So I think there's a sense of cooperation among independent filmmakers that maybe would not have been possible in years past.
And then probably communicating with the internet helps them share that stuff that wasn't going on 10 years ago. So now you have more buddies, and they can live. You never even met them, but you know them through Facebook or whatever, and then you're sharing equipment like that too. So that's probably an element of that as well.
Before I was acting in these movies 10 years ago, I was a journalist, and in addition to being a reporter, I was a film critic for a couple of newspapers and a magazine in New Hampshire, and I was writing film criticism for a long time. And even though I act in these indie movies, I really love independent cinema, and I have to admit, I realize these days I almost never go to see a big budget Hollywood studio production. I've with these Hollywood films with these enormous budgets, chances, they cannot afford to take chances. They've got to appeal to the largest cross-section of the public to make their money back, and as a result, I think they've gone stale and empty, and they just repeat themselves. Even when I wasn't acting, I became very excited about what was happening in independent cinema as a critic, and in one of the last reviews I wrote before I decided to quit writing about movies and start acting in them, I commented,